Hi, everyone. COVID-19 will reshape our world. That's what everybody is certain about. But by the time this crisis will end, how different our world will be is anyone's guess. Joseph Borrell, the High Representative of European Union, said it will depend on the choices we make today. My guest is Ambassador Christian Berger. He is the head of the European delegation to Turkey. And I will ask him what those choices could be for Europe and how they could translate into EU-Turkey relations. Ambassador, welcome.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you for talking to you and to your viewers about this issue. Yes, you're right. Josep Borrell issued this statement the other day, but many others have commented it as well, because this is obviously a topic that everybody is concerned. How do we get aid through this crisis? This is one of these very few crises that is really a pandemic, in the sense it's a worldwide crisis. And I think many countries are in the same boat, and many politicians around this globe think about the same issues. How do we get through this with the least damage? First of all, to reduce and to prevent people from dying. Obviously, that's, I think, priority number one. And then you have many other priorities. The one that everybody is concerned about: what is the effect on the international economy or the economy of the individual countries? What does this mean for our jobs? What does this mean for our livelihood? Or what does this mean, and this debate is also going on, how in future our social life will look like? So there are many questions that many people are concerned about and talking about, and Borrell, I think, contributed to this debate. I think one element that we see already today is the world is coming closer together. So this drive for a multilateral approach, a global approach, that we only strong enough when we are together. I think this is a very strong message that is not only true for the European Union itself, but I think this is true globally. And you have seen, and I'm sure you followed the meeting of the G20 a few days ago, where this was the main subject, or what this was the red thread throughout the meeting, that we need to be together. We can only cope with this crisis in a global fashion.
Yes, late than never, I should say. But I would like to ask the initial lack of solidarity within Europe, if I may say so, especially with Italy. It has drawn criticism, as you know, also. Rather than a display of solidarity, what we have witnessed mostly was a me-first approach. Could you comment on that? I mean, why was it so?
Well, first of all, this was a shock to many. This crisis, and also how quickly it spread across the world and hit different countries. Now, very often, you as a nation state, you are the first responder when a crisis like this is happening. This is also the case in this point. So nation states, Italy, Spain, and other countries, Germany, and many other countries responded first to the situation. And then what kicked in very quickly. I mean, you said better late than never, but I think you also have to see this in a timeline. What kicked in very quickly is European cooperation and solidarity on many levels and many fronts. So very quickly, there was an agreement between member states and the European Commission to launch massive procurement contracts and procurement tenders for equipment, for masks, for gloves, for ventilators, all the equipment that is now very desperately searched on the international market. So there are tenders, and we will see the first results of these tenders in the coming days when we get the response from the company. What is also important is that very quickly the European Union was offering issues and things that only the EU as a collective, the 27 together, can do and can do well. So one is taking care of European citizens who are abroad and wish to come back and couldn't come back anymore because of flights that had been cancelled. So this is what we call repatriation. So there's a collective endeavor here to bring as many European citizens back home, particularly those who wish to come back. I mean, nobody's forced to come back, but those who wish to come back can avail themselves of these services. The other one, in my view, even more important, in addition to the procurement I mentioned earlier on, is research. We have the European Centre for Preventive Disease and Control. So this center is very actively involved in coming up with research and research results to find a vaccine, to find ways of treatment, but also to make recommendations how to deal with this. This is at the European level, and I think the Union as a collective is well placed to do that. The third aspect is, and that is not only with the Union itself, within the Union, but also with neighboring countries like Turkey, how can we keep the flow of trade going? How can we make sure that trade can get across the border? There are various initiatives. We have this, you may have heard about it, it's the so-called Green Lane initiative to make sure that trucks can easily cross not only the borders within the Union, but also coming from Turkey, for example, to Bulgaria, from Turkey to Greece, to make sure that the flow of trade works both ways, because trade in the end is the backbone of our relationship. So we really need to, I think we really need to protect this flow of trades. And the fourth point, which has to do with the situation now, but even more so with the future, how can we make sure that the economic impact is limited? And how can we make sure that our economies can come back on their feet as quickly as possible? So there are many initiatives, investment initiatives, loan initiatives by the European Investment Bank, by the Commission, by the European Central Bank to take steps. So it's a big package. And you will see more of that in the coming days when the European Council will meet again to discuss economic issues. One aspect was also to ease the budgetary rules, so more money can flow into the economy to immediately counter the negative impact of the crisis. And also let me mention one aspect that has to do with transport and with commerce. You may know that for airlines to keep their landing rights, they need to at least have 80% of their flights that are scheduled and need them to go on. But of course, many flights at the moment cannot take place because there are no passengers. So the Commission, together with the European Parliament, agreed that this will be waived for the next year. So airlines do not lose their commercial rights. So again, these are all issues where I think the European Union is coming in, and this comes all on top what member states are doing between each other. Yeah? There are a lot of patients that are being flown from one country to the other because they get better treatment there. There's also an exchange of protective gear, what is needed in one place, what is not needed in the other place. So there are many of these issues because the European Union is organized on different levels. It's organized at the level of regions, of states, of the European Union itself. And between all these structures, I think at the moment we see a very strong cooperation.
Ambassador, you mentioned many good, new responses for this pandemic, both for its economic aspects and for other aspects. But could I ask, will these aspects will these solidarity actions, newly announced schemes, will they be extended to the countries who are on their way to accession to EU? I mean, the West Balkans countries. For example, Serbia particularly was very harsh on its criticism towards EU. Could you comment a little bit for those countries?
Well, first of all, we have set up an information exchange system with the Western Balkan countries, not actually with the candidate countries, so that includes Turkey. So that is happening now to see where issues are, where problems are. We also have set up contact points for the economy, for trade, for transport. So we have this on the Turkish side. We have a contact point where we discuss all these issues, and they can raise issues with us. And we also are looking at the moment into whatever the requirements are, financial requirements, our project-related requirements are in response. So that we are in touch and we are in close contact with the authorities, and we have also video conferences and we discuss these issues. I can't give you anything concrete at the moment because we are discussing this, and we also have to see what the budgetary implications of all this are. But there are efforts underway to also reach out to our immediate neighboring countries and see how we can help and support them.
Thank you for the answer. It's important to hear that. It's good to hear that. Also, but we see that there is a division which still prevails within the Europe. I mean, I want to ask about the so-called Corona bonds. You know, that some countries wants to mutualize their debts within European Union, and some others resist to this. Do you expect it will be resolved soon, and how?
Well, I'm sure you referred to the debate in the European Council last week, where this was discussed.
Yes.
But it's not the first time that it's being discussed. We also had this discussion after the Euro crisis or the financial crisis in 2008. All I can tell you is that the European Council has mandated the ministers of finance to come up with suggestions and ideas, and there will be another meeting very soon. So I don't know the details. I don't know what they will come up with, but this is certainly, the discussion is not over yet. It will continue.
Thank you. And about the political aspect of this crisis, I want to ask, Brussels, I mean, the Commission is being criticized for stopping short of criticizing enough of Hungary, because it imposed an indefinite rule by decrees. And as far as I remember, the Commission was not soft in its approach against Turkey when it's also, decided to use indefinite rule by decrees. So could you comment on that? I mean, is there a change in the democratic values of Europe in that sense, the Copenhagen criteria, because why Hungary could do that? Could you comment on that?
I mean, first of all, thank you for the question, but it's difficult for me to comment on individual member states of the European Union. Let me say simply the following, and quote the president of the Euro Commission, who was, I think, asked a similar question. I mean, the message was that, yes, we are going through difficult times. Yes, countries are taking certain actions and steps. Of course, this has to be done in full compliance with fundamental rights and fundamental freedoms. And of course, it has to be temporary. I think this was the message from the president of the Commission to everyone. And this is not only one country. This is the question, I'm sure, for many others who are faced with taking very difficult decisions. I mean, I don't think at any time in our history we have seen decisions to ask people to stay at home, not to go out, not to meet, not to engage. I mean, these are all, I think, very important steps that are being taken, but we need to know that this must not affect our fundamental rights and freedoms, and it must not be for long. I think this was I want to. This is as far as I want to go in my comments. We will certainly see more of that in the future.
But let me say at least that the head of Commission, Ms. von der Leyen, did not name Hungary, which was why it is found a little bit soft on Hungary. And secondly, we were wondering whether these, I mean, what I want to say is that when, health comes first, and we can understand that you can have emergency powers and change some rules, but the problem here is that they are indefinite. I mean, could you maybe comment on that as far as the European criteria, for example, for those type of actions?
Well, I hope they're not indefinite. I don't think they are indefinite. I think they're all linked to the crisis. So I think the Commission will follow this very closely also in the future. What measures are being taken, for how long, for what reasons. But again, this is what I can say at this moment.
From Turkey, and I would like to ask, you mentioned some of them at the beginning, some actions regarding, including Turkey, but are there any plans for assistance or aids from EU towards Turkey?
Sorry, I did not get, I didn't hear that.
I'm asking whether EU has plans for assistance to Turkey.
Did I get you correct? If the EU has plans for assistance to Turkey? Is this
EU
the question?
has plans, yeah.
Yes, as I said before, we are in close touch with the authorities. We have received some requests and some questions here or there. What we can do, how we can cooperate. We also have at the level of the services. We will have a video conference very soon to look into this. What the needs are, where we can help. I mean, as you know, we have a number of important health projects in Turkey which we could improve, which we could beef up and strengthen and broaden. There is one, as you know, we do a lot of health work for Syrians who are present in Turkey. So there has been a suggestion that we step that up, because there is obviously this is a vulnerable group. And we don't want to spread the disease there. But it's not only that, it's also with that we also would help the host communities. So there are a lot of ideas that we are looking in at the moment. So I can't give you the details right now, but these are issues that we are in close contact and in touch with the relevant authorities on the Turkish side, because we also need to understand what the needs are.
Turkey was hoping to carve a new deal regarding the refugee issue. Is there anything new on that front?
Sorry, I didn't get it. Say it again.
Turkey was hoping to have a new deal with European Union regarding refugees, the issue. Is there anything new on that front?
As you know, the President Erdogan was in Brussels on the 9th of March. This was one of the issues discussed, and the High Representative, together with the Foreign Minister of Turkey, Mr. Çavuşoğlu, were asked to follow up, and these discussions are going on. So we are in close touch with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to see what the needs are, where we need to adjust, where we need to improve the implementation of the agreement of 2016. We all know that Turkey had additional number of people coming into the country since 2016, not only Syrians, but also the last few months and maybe the last year and a half, people also across the Iranian border, Afghanis in particular. So there's a changed situation, and we are of course, we said that we fully understand the predatory pressure that Turkey is under, and we, as we did already before 2016, we are ready to help. We will, and we're working now with the relevant counterparts, what the needs are, where adjustment is needed, really to address this additional burden on Turkey.
And now we can understand the reason the borders are closed, but Turkey also expects a visa freedom, a better visa scheme with the European Union. Do you expect the borders will open in that sense soon, after if the pandemic ends soon, as of course?
Sorry, the sound is getting now very bad. I only word visa liberalization. Was it that one?
Yeah, exactly. The question is about visa liberalization. Yeah.
Okay. No, we. An ongoing work that with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. There are several issues that, as you know, we had agreed long time ago on certain benchmarks for visa liberalization. Many of them have been fulfilled. Some are still outstanding, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs and with the other relevant ministries are working on these points, and will come back to us to see if the criteria are now met. So that's the situation at the moment. So the technical discussion on these issues is still continuing.
So okay, and it's another contentious issue that I would like to ask. Actually, what is going on? It's regarding the Middle Eastern hydrocarbon reserves. We have a dormant. It is dormant due to pandemic, this issue. But could you say anything about that? What can we expect when the crisis ends?
Look, I mean, I don't want to go into the details. Well known different news about maritime boundaries and the drilling activities in the Eastern Mediterranean. I think what is very clear on both sides, this is an issue to resolve. for the good of both of us. So this is certainly one of these difficult political issues that we need to address. I think there's not much else I can add to this. I mean, whatever is in the press, whatever is in the media, I think you're aware of the differences, in particular in interpretation of international law, etc. And our point of view that the Republic of Cyprus is in union. We know very well what the Turkish point of view is on all this, but I think what is needed that soon we come together and try to resolve these issues. Because, again, what this crisis has shown, we need to work together, we need to live together, we are in the same space of the Mediterranean, cannot linger for too long.
Ambassador Berger, thank you very much for this conversation. I hope that Europe and Turkey can make the right choices today to come out stronger and better from this pandemic. Thank you very much for watching us.